Hey people, welcome to this new episode of Libertadores in English. I am Sepe from Bolivar News. As you may know, I am part of this portal page of Bolivar where we are providing news in English. So as part of this journey, we face and we start meeting new people from with the same ideas, but from some other different countries. And one thing I discovered the other day was after I received a message that someone in the UK was creating posters of the best players in Libertadores. And one of those players was Ronnie Fernandez, the striker from Bolivar. So I just checked the person that sent me the message, and I discovered this Copa Club, which is a page which has a podcast where they speak about Latin American football. And I really got excited and shocked of the level of knowledge that they have about our football. And I decided to invite the leader of this group, let's say, or the admin, which is our friend Nathan Joyce. Nathan, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction. Really happy to be here. You guys are doing some great work yourselves. So nice to get a collaboration in and to, yes, always talk about South American football. It's a huge pleasure of mine.
That's lovely. Nathan, I have a lot of questions, of course. We're live on the Twitch. We're streaming live on Twitch. We also have people connected on TikTok. Para la gente de TikTok, si quieren hacer preguntas, pónganlas en el chat, las vamos a estar leyendo en vivo. We will read the questions on Twitch and on TikTok, so feel free just to throw anything you like to know about this. Of course, we will be talking about Bolivar, Libertadores, Inter, but first thing I really like to know is about Copa Club. I was listening some episodes, and the level of expertise and knowledge you have on Latin American football is really shocking. So tell us a little how you started with this idea. What's your connection with Latin American football and so?
Shocking, hopefully in a good way. But no, I've been following South American football for at least a decade now. I worked in a sports job where I was working night shifts. And as you know, with the time difference in the UK, when I was working the early hours of the morning, the only football which was on was South American football. And I actually found myself diving into Bolivian football at first. And then that sort of naturally fell into the Copa Libertadores. And I found myself fascinated with the high altitude and the difference and how at first Bolivian teams could destroy teams from Brazil and Argentina. So I sort of naturally fell into it from there, and it's just sort of really snowballed. And yeah, the business came about at the start of this year. The Copa Club was formed. The idea started really in creating football magazines. So at the start of the year, I put 3-4 months together building the team guide for the 2023 Libertadores, which was available to download for free. I pitched that in April time. That went live, had a really good reception, and it sort of snowballed from there, really. A second edition came out about the group stage in the last month or so, just analysing and looking ahead towards the knockout stage. In between that, a website launched where I provide my opinions to largely a UK and US audience for basically players coming over from South America to the UK. There's plenty now coming across. I'm a Nottingham Forest fan, and we've brought over a couple of Palmeiras players in the last year. So it's been a nice connection, and it's been really great to share that knowledge with people who are fans in the Premier League and in Europe. So that's what the website's there for. The magazines are a nice addition. There's something I'm really proud of and work on. There's 3 editions every year. There's a new one coming out in December. I can't reveal exactly what's going on yet. I'm keeping it a little secret, but definitely keep an eye on my channel for what's going on there. But yes, also the Copa Club podcast was formed. I think we're 8 or 9 episodes in now. It's really escalated, and yeah, I have a new guest each week, or sometimes invite previous ones back. But the likes of Tim Vickery has come onto the podcast, and yeah, we talk all angles around South American football. And the one you've just spoken about was the Libertadores special with Peter Pankowski and Callum Goodall. I give a shout out to those two guys, who are experts in South American football as well. So yeah, plenty going on. And like I said, the business only launched in January. Really exciting time, very, very busy. But the Libertadores is a huge passion of mine, and it's an unbelievable competition. More people should know about it. And that's my job. So yeah, that's the Copper Club in a nutshell, really.
That's a lovely introduction. And I heard you're from Nottingham Forest, so, and you had some Palmeiras players there. So that making you kind of a fan of Palmeiras, or are you supporting any team in Latin America? Like you follow it, like you watch the games, or just read the stats and things like that?
I try and keep as neutral as possible, really. But being a Nottingham Forest fan until the last couple of years, they've not been the best, to be honest. So my passion for South American football, it's been a nice escape to watch South American football, and that's what I've used it for. And Palmeiras were a team who I've loved and watched purely because of the way they play. Abel Ferreira's an unbelievable manager. Really like the style, really like the players, like Gustavo Scarpa and Danilo. I couldn't believe that my two worlds collided and they ended up joining Nottingham Forest. So there's a link there. I'm a huge fan of Sao Paulo. I think it was one of the first teams I actually started watching in Brazilian football. As little as, because look, I don't have any connections over in the UK, as little as liking their kit and then just keeping an eye on them. And the things they're doing this year is great to watch as well. And look, Bolivian football, I don't want to pick anybody out. I'm a huge fan of anybody from Bolivia going into the Libertadores, whether it's Bolivar, the strongest, always ready, Wistelman over the years. I've always been a huge fan and advocate for Bolivian football, and watching them do well, hopefully, and this year, especially with Bolivar, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, and I'm a huge fan. I know I've gone around the houses a little bit there, but there's a lot of Brazilian teams I like. I like watching Bolivian football, but I think the best thing for me, my role, and with the Copper Club, is to not get attached too much to one club in particular, and enjoy South American football from afar and what it is. I don't need the roller coaster of a Brazilian team as well as Nottingham Forest. That's enough stress levels for me back in the UK. So yeah, I'm just going to sit on the fence here and say no after that long sort of rant. But yeah, that's it really.
I don't want to put you under that level of stress, but how is it Nottingham Forest is going? They are on the Premier League still, right?
Yeah, promoted last year for the first time in 24, 25 years. So pretty much I'm only 30, so it's been probably the first time I've recognised Nottingham Forest back in the Premier League. And obviously with them being in the Premier League, that's allowed funds into the club. And what they've tried to do is exploit South America and look and scout over there and bring players in, because as we know, the Premier League has a lot of money, and other teams who are looking to try and compete or stay in the division for numerous years once they've come up need to be able to find players who can compete, but for a good price. And like players like Danilo coming over for 15, 16 million. In a year or two, he's probably going to move on, but it's going to be a nice profit for Nottingham Forest. And teams like Brighton and Wolves, they're other examples in the Premier League who are now going direct to the source in South America. And it's great to see. I know the fees are a little bit cheaper, but look, these young guys deserve to probably have that experience with smaller teams before taking that next step. I think it's really good to see, like if Danilo went straight over to someone like Manchester City, for example, would he be able to improve his game? Would he be able to get minutes on the pitch? So teams like Brighton and Nottingham Forest and Wolves, which I've mentioned, are bringing these young lads over. João Gomez, Danilo, as we've spoken about. And these sort of players are then getting time to sort of grow within the game and then potentially take that next step. And it's really good to see people in the UK now taking note of that. And hence why the business this year is doing quite well, because a lot of people are coming to me saying, who's this guy? Who's that? And I'm sure the next 2 or 3 weeks for the UK transfer market is going to be a little bit crazy. And I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 South Americans to come over to the UK. We haven't seen too many yet. I'm hoping to see 1 or 2 more, but it'd be interesting just to monitor. But yeah, that's it really. It's nice to see the players coming over and the links between European football and South American football now. Obviously, we now have Saudi Arabia and what they're doing over there, but that's a completely different conversation. So I'll just stop that there.
Okay, yeah, I hope we will go there because I also like to know if you already saw uh, players from Bolivar that potentially may join Nottingham Forest, but not don't answer now. But maybe there are some of them that you like, you see as a potential, right? Okay, Nathan, let's go to what it our business now. Let's say it like that, which is basically the good Libertadores. So I like to start talking about the tournament, the competition itself. So how did you like it? How did you feel it? And in general, I'd like a general overview because we have many surprises, of course. We have River Plate out of the competition, for example. That was one surprise there. Olympia just beating Flamengo. Bolivar also against a Paranense, which is not maybe the most traditional runner-up team, but it was the second place, the last competition, and this year had Arturo Vidal, for example, which is a worldwide star playing on their team. So in general, how do you perceive, how do you feel the competition, the Libertadores itself?
It's been as crazy as ever, and that's why we love the Libertadores. It's as you said, you've touched on a few teams surprising who have been knocked out, but you can even go further back, and teams like the Corinthians, who couldn't even qualify out of the groups. Yes, their group was very competitive, but expected to top that, and they didn't. And then teams like Flamengo, the champions, get knocked out to Olympia. Not many people saw that coming. I think it's easy to say in hindsight, but Olympia were one of two teams unbeaten in the Libertadores, and I think they scored 13, 14 goals and looked really strong going forward and managed to get a result at the Maracana. When I say result, they only lost 1-0, and that was the best result they could hope for, really. I think a 2-goal swing might have made life a little bit difficult, but the atmosphere Olympia brought to that second leg, wow, it was unbelievable, really. Flamengo shot themselves in the foot. It was 2 set pieces and a cross which caught them out. They didn't learn their lessons. They seem to be a team of superstars, and a team of players who have been there and done it seem to be struggling in the atmosphere, and rabbits in the headlights, as we probably say in the UK, got very scared as to what was happening around them, and they didn't take 2 minutes to catch their breath, and they haven't got a chance now. They're out of the tournament. I think things going off the pitch with them at the moment, there's a lot going on. I think there's been a couple of players fighting this week, and then Pedro and the staff got in an alteration the week before. So a lot going on behind the scenes, and whether you're superstars or not, if your team are not clicking off the pitch and there's no chemistry and there's issues, you're not going to be champions again. This is a long competition, remember. So for me, I always thought Flamengo had a bad result in them, and I didn't think they were going to be champions again. I didn't think it was going to be Olympia, but fair play to them. And now they have a real chance of getting to the semi-finals. You can't rule them out. So yeah, as you said, River Plate going out as well. That game against Inter was ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen a penalty shootout when it was 8-8 change ends before. I felt a little bit sorry for I can't remember the next person who was up to take the penalty who missed for River. There was a lot going on, but the Libertadores is drama, and Bolivar were right at the heart of that as well, right? Against Atletico Paranense, last year's finalists, Vitor Roque, it was his last chance to win the Libertadores. For now, obviously, he's moving to Barcelona. And yeah, if we're not going to get into it now, interrupt me, but Bolivar, when they won the first leg 3-1, I thought that was potentially a little bit disappointing at the fact that Bolivar had conceded. I thought that Bolivar would need a 3-goal lead to take back to Brazil, and I was proven wrong. 3 goals seemed to be enough. In that first leg, the only reason why I say that is because numerous chances in the second leg to really finish that game off. It should have finished 4-5-1 in the end. Absolutely destroyed Atletico Paranense, and obviously Brazilians don't enjoy going to the Paz at the best of times. But that second leg, there seems to be something changing within Bolivian football, let alone not just Bolivar. Yes, the strongest went out in the group stage, but didn't really get battered away from home. They performed admirably in a challenging group, and it was really tight results. And we saw that, obviously, Bolivar beating Cerro Porteño 4-0. And I went back over the match before we jumped onto this call, and the first couple of goals, yes, potentially fortunate, falling in favour of Bolivar, but the second two goals, especially the last one, the third one, was a nice little dink to make it 3-0 in the first half, and then out the blocks quick again in the second half. And the creativity and the strength and confidence to go forward is something which we've not seen from Bolivar or other Bolivian teams away in this competition for so many years. They like to use the strength of home, which is fair enough. Use the high altitude to your advantage, but it's always black and white. The home and away performances are just complete contrast. But this year there's been something different, and we'll focus on Bolivar because that 4-0 win against Cerro Porteño was the result which pretty much got them out of the groups. You can rely on your home form, but you always need to get a result away from home, and they did that. And to only go and lose 2-0 away to Atletico Paranaense, I know you put 5 at the back and were very deep in your half, but Atletico Paranaense didn't know how to break you down. There wasn't too many chances in that first half. Yes, they scored the penalty from the handball incident, and I'm not too sure that the Bolivar goal should have been disallowed, but it doesn't matter now because you're through. But the only real weakness was, and where it could have, where Bolivian teams have often gone wrong in the past is when one goal has gone in, 2, 3, 4, 5 have followed. And although Vitor Roque was given way too much space for that second goal, overall, the amount of defending Bolivar had to do, they held their shape pretty well. And to go through on penalties was a huge achievement. I didn't think the 2-goal lead was going to be enough, but there's been something changing within Bolivian football of late, and it's great to see. And hopefully Bolivar can get a result against Inter, which is going to be an extremely exciting game.
Yeah, and talking about Bolivar participation, there you're right. I mean, you just remarked one thing about the strategy of the lineup with the 5 in defense. This is kind of question thing because when Beñat San Jose, who's the coach, he's from Spain. He was on the team before on the 2017.
Yes, yeah.
We went twice champions, right? I guess you already know that. When he arrived, he started with the line of 4 defense, and it was way to question because we were champions on the 2022 with the line of 3, but with different players. Of course,
yes,
that team was completely, let's say, erased somehow, and the coach started to be questioned because of that decision. And we moved back again with the line of 3. And it's funny because this is not quite, it looks like a 5 in defense, but you have the 2 of the sides at like wingers. So are more in attack than in defense. And that's where Bolivar, for example, struggles in the league. And when those ones goes on attack, then they are having challenges on the return. And that's how the rivals score us. And most of the goals we have seen with that colleague Manuel Kikai. I have this has the access to this Opta stuff, like the stats and many and those things. And I was watching the heat maps of those, and most of the goals comes from the sides, and it's after we made an attack. So it's kind of funny details, but what another funny thing is that if you actually watch a game of Bolivar, you see one team in the league and completely different one, the Libertadores. That's what we call the Libertadores chip, the microchip Libertadores.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
I mean, there are people that say because we have kind of a reward after each game. On the first stage, you have a 300K US dollars if you win a game. I guess on the round of 16s you don't have that price anymore, but you have a 1.7 million.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, huge difference.
Huge difference. Yeah, and of course you don't have that kind of motivation. I don't know, and that's something I don't know, how much of that money goes to the players, for example, to the
Mm.
squad. I don't know. But let's suppose it's $1,000 extra that you have on your salary. And economy in Bolivia is very small, so 1,000 really makes a difference. So imagine, like, I don't know, more than that, 2,000, 3,000, I don't know, whatever. But
Sure.
yeah, that's one of the motivations they say. I don't know. And other thing is that you have more crowded matches on the Libertadores. It's still not overcrowded, but you have more audience there. That might be another reason. The other things we don't understand, we simply don't understand. But yeah, even on derby matches, we saw terrible games from Bolivar. But in Libertadores, it's like a different team, a different attitude. Um, and yeah, of course, rivals are not used to the altitude. And I listened that on your last podcast, talking about the altitude and the effects.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's one funny thing about that is never mentioned, um, and it's that you have an opposite effect when you're from the altitude, from the mountains, and going back to the to the sea level cities, for example. That's the fact that nobody talks.
Do you know what? I've been watching South American football for 10 years, and I've always obviously spoke about the high altitude. And as simple as that sounds, I've never actually thought of that the other way around. So it sort of counteracts itself in a way. What would be the reverse? It might be a stupid question, but what would
No, it's
be?
not. It's not stupid because we have this discussion many times with many people, and I always use an example that
Yeah.
if you have a lion and you put the lion in the forest, and if you have a bear and you put the bear in the jungle, who of those animals is having more challenges hunting?
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Both of them, because no one is on their own environment. But we will talk more about the lion because the lion, I don't know, have more audience, more fans, more supporters. I don't know, and that's how this we should understand. I mean, it's challenge for one and challenge for the other. On the One of the things on the altitude, of course, after besides the breathing, is that you have the ball that it's flying, it's going faster
Hmm.
for the passes, for the shoots. It's like, do you play football? I'm sure you play. It's just quite
I've not
maybe,
played for a while, but I have been. Yeah, most of my life I have. Yeah.
yeah. But it's like kicking a ball of volleyball, for example. It's lighter,
Yeah.
it just will fly. Well, this,
It's so interesting, isn't it? It sounds simple when you start explaining these things, but it's not until you go into these details that people realize. And I hadn't even thought about that before. I know, and this might be wrong, but a few years ago, I think Bolivia played like Brazil in a World Cup qualifier or something, and there was a decision to switch and use different balls at one point. And I know there's a discussion around that with them being lighter, but I actually didn't know the altitude would affect that as well. So that's really interesting to hear.
yeah. And actually, Argentina on the 1998, before they played with Bolivar, they made kind of a preparation with volleyball balls, for example.
Which is ridiculous, isn't it? It's mad when you
Yeah,
actually talk about it, but that's really interesting.
it's actually smart because it also helps the brain to process that, because you have the first period when you're playing where you need to get used to the ball, need to administrate the oxygen in your body. So this is quite a lot of things that you need to put into every single player's mind, and that's one thing. And the other way around, when people from the mountain goes to the sea level lands, let's say, it's you have a poor dehydration.
Hmm.
You have your how you say, your feet are getting bigger, so you need to wear extra size shoes. It's different, and of course the ball is heavier, so you're not used to play it like that. So you will see that one or the other, they're not precise with shoots. I remember the first time Messi went into the La Paz, for example,
Mm-hmm.
free kick for Messi. He shoot and he just sent it, to the moon and back.
Miles.
Yeah, it was
Which we might
crazy.
see next year with Inter Miami being invited into the Libertadores. If all that goes through, we might be able to see Messi ballooning free kicks and sending other free kicks to the moon next year in La Paz. But we'll save that for when it's actually confirmed. But really interesting. I didn't know a couple of those things, so thanks for sharing.
No problem. But that's because, of course, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, they don't have altitude.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't talk about that. So as we consume that football, we consume also that ideology that altitude is hazardous somehow. Altitude is killing people, and it's not true. And I mean, it's an advantage. Yes, it is. But bear in mind that Bolivia never win a World Cup or never goes first on a World Cup. It just qualified once in 50 years. Once.
Yeah.
Libertadores, only one team of two. Yeah, Libertadores, one team of altitude won. Liga de Quito. And
until this year.
I like what you're saying. I like your faith. Yeah, until this year. But yeah, so those are things that we don't reflect sometimes, right? And we just think about the altitude. And it's also Bolivians' fault because there is no a serious institution where you can go and do research, investigation, something more scientific that can tell you exactly what is happening. And that's something that is lacking. So that's why also FIFA, CONMEBOL is always trying to put altitude on the spot and try to limitate. It's impossible to to just disallow or to just take out altitude from from football, because there are many countries and many people living, many cities actually, and many people living on that city playing football. So it would be way too unfair. And if you do that, of course you have I don't know, you have places with high temperatures. I don't know, places that you can get killed if you go to the to watch game. But yeah, that about Bolivar. So that's all the things. Yeah, and I also listened the last episode. You were talking about the altitude, and I said, okay, I will mention this to Nathan because.
I find it fascinating. I find it really interesting. I could probably listen to it all day. Anything which sort of takes a normal football game and changes it, because obviously in the UK it's always just home advantage, away advantage, stadium size, stuff like that. So adding this scientific layer to football and bringing it obviously in the Libertadores, that's what makes it special, and I think that's what I really liked about it. So I have not thought about it the flip side before. So yeah, definitely I'll bear that in mind when I talk about it in future podcasts.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Okay, we already covered a little Bolivar, and I will ask you a question in a moment, but I wanted to know about, and I know you're expert and you're the right person to ask about Inter. How do you see? How have you seen it? How do you see the team is prepared for this match, for this clash? Actually,
it's really interesting. They're again, they're the only team who were unbeaten in the competition until they played River Plate, but managed to flip that game in its head. And I already alluded to how crazy that second leg was back at Inter, and Bolivar will have to experience a horrible atmosphere in that second leg, hopefully with an advantage from the first leg. But a team of superstars, really. Alan Patrick, who used to play for Shakhtar, spent most of his career in Europe. He's the captain who plays attacking midfield behind now Enner Valencia, who's, yes, 33, but has just come across from Fenerbahce, where he's had his best ever career. So they have a team there of youth and experience, similar to Bolivar in a way, but obviously on a different level purely because of their budget. They have a fascinating young right winger called Maurizio, who's spent most of the Libertadores campaign injured, but came back for the final game, made a huge difference, scored a wonder goal, which is probably one of the best goals in the Libertadores so far, and his impact has been massive. But also Inter have brought in National's keeper as well in Rochette, and he's an unbelievable goalkeeper, and that's a great purchase. And he's definitely earned his transfer fee already from that second leg, especially in the penalty shootout against River Plate. But they've also changed the manager of late. Eduardo Cortet has come in, and he's not a man known for too many goals within his team, which is music to Bolivar ears. So before, under Menendez, they were scoring quite freely, but for some reason it hadn't worked out this year. And obviously we know in Brazilian football, if you don't win a few games, you're gone. And Inter were struggling domestically, so they've had a really promising Libertadores campaign, but in Serie A, it was a completely different story. And yeah, Cudet's come in, and like I said, he's not known or not renowned for a team blowing teams away by 2, 3, 4, 5 goals, which is music to Bolivar's ears, as I've already said. So that first leg is going to be massively interesting. I see it going the exact same way as the Perenense game. Hopefully Bolivar don't concede, but if Bolivar take a 3-goal lead to Inter, that's going to be really interesting, because we've seen a different side to Bolivar this year. I think many expected Bolivar to go to Perenense and completely roll over, and yes, it did go 2-0, so you were stretched all the way to penalties. But I think in years gone by, that would have been 3, 4, 5-0 and a complete disaster. But something's changing, and that's what makes this game so interesting. And I think the fact that the first leg is at La Paz is actually an advantage to Bolivar, because the damage could already be done if it was the other way around. So the fact that Bolivar have a chance to make a statement here in front of their own fans and take a good lead, and they'll have the confidence from what happened in Brazil previously with Atletico Perenense, that they can go there, hold their own, ride their luck a little bit at times. But there's enough within the team. I said that Internacional have a mix of experience and youth, but that's exactly what Bolivar have. And Ronnie Fernandez has been an amazing addition to the front line, and he plays the competition perfectly. He had the 2 centre-backs all over the shop, pulled them all over the place against in that first leg, and he's just deadly in around the box, isn't he? He's a match winner. We saw that against Barcelona when he scored that last minute goal. I think it was about 95th minute, which all but sealed Bolivar's qualification from the group stage. And he's just a horrible striker to play against. He's a defender's nightmare, but he's the sort of striker you want in your team, and he will feed off defenders' mistakes. We saw with the first goal Bolivar scored in the first leg, the equaliser, the centre-backs made a mistake. Was it Kaki Rocha? He made a mistake for all 3 goals, arguably, but you only needed to give him half a yard. And Ronnie Fernandez he still had a lot to do. He wasn't just in on goal, and he's turned him inside out and slotted the ball home perfectly. His confidence is sky high. And like I said, he's been an unbelievable addition. I think without him, Bolivar wouldn't be where they are. A little unfortunate with the goal, which was ruled out in the second leg. I think it's potentially a bit of a needless foul. That's where he can be a little bit vulnerable. But overall, he's been a superstar for Bolivar, and I wouldn't rule out backing him again to score a goal or 2 in La Paz. So yeah, really exciting. I can't work out how this is going to go. I think the first leg, Bolivar could be 2 or 3-0. If you keep that clean sheet, perfect. And that second leg, now if Bolivar fans want to take this next statement and feed off it with a little bit of confidence, and I think this was during COVID when there wasn't any fans, but Inter were shocked and knocked out of the Sudamericana last year to Melgar, who held them to a 0-0 draw. And I think they had 10 men for at least the last 20 minutes of regulation time before being knocked out on penalties. Now, is a similar situation to Bolivar, is in not saying that they're the exact same teams, but a far superior team on paper went to Inter. And I know it's under different manager now and some players have changed, but Inter have always screamed to be that team where they will struggle to blow teams away. And Bolivar, if they build up that lead, then, dare I say it, Bolivar could be on the way to the semi-finals, which just makes the Libertadores even more exciting. So that first leg is key, I think. But I think 3-goal advantage is a minimum in order for Bolivar to qualify. but it's not out of the possibility. So really, really exciting, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. You know a lot of the team. Oh, I'm really surprised. Yeah, I mean, going back to Inter. Yeah, we saw from the stats on the first on the round of groups that it was not the, let's say, the strongest team, let's say, the strongest rival, and actually it was one of the rivals that we wanted to face, let's say. But Brazilian teams are always a nightmare, and you never know. So it's really, I mean, they have problems playing in La Paz, most of them. Um, but in Brazil, they kill you, really. I mean,
Yes,
they're way too precise.
But what we can say is that was probably expected from Paranense with Vitor Roque playing up front, and it was only 2-0, and Bolivar did what they needed to do. I think if you were offered Inter or River Plate to play in the quarterfinals, everyone would say Inter, purely because, yes, Brazilian teams do struggle at altitude, but I think River Plate would probably blow Bolivar apart at El Monumental. So the fact that it's worked out for you, when that draw was made, that right-hand side of the draw was horrible for any team, to be honest. It was, compared to the left side of the draw, teams like Palmeiras, all they really needed to do was beat Mineiro, and they're on the way to the final comfortably. The other side of the draw, I couldn't call it, but I think the fact that Bolivar have drawn into whatever way that goes in Brazil, as long as it's not down to individual errors and it's down to creativity and the quality of Inter, I don't think Bolivar fans can be disappointed. I just think that's the one key thing to take away from that, is in that second leg, do not make mistakes. Look and learn from that second goal with Vitor Roque, giving him space. I think Bolivar were panicking a little bit and the whole defence was sucked into the ball. You can't do that, because that's when Inter will blow you away. But hold that back 5-3 with the fullbacks, box them in, frustrate them, and the longer that game goes, that's going to play into your hands. And that's easy to say. I just think if Bolivar go to Brazil with any sort of advantage and concede early, it might be a case of what we saw with Flamengo and the fact that they were shocked and didn't know how to react. But the longer that game goes on, Inter will grow frustrated. Bolivar will know what to do defensively in terms of keeping that shape. But if Inter look to play it about a little bit, you've got to concentrate for 90 minutes. And doing a defensive job for 90 minutes at any level is truly difficult. So it's really interesting, isn't it? And I think we can conclude a little bit more as to how this tie is going to go after the first leg. But at the moment, it's too hard to call. I hope Bolivar do it. It'll be amazing for Bolivian football. And I think in the first leg they will. But it's just all about that second leg. But as I've alluded to, Inter last year against Melgar struggled and got knocked out. They've brought in a manager not renowned for scoring plenty of goals and his fluid football, which is another tick. So advantage Bolivar at this point, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we're really hopeful this time. When we started the Cup, of course, we started beating Palmeiras, which was not minor, but Palmeiras have not their lineup team, so that led some. Yeah, still I know, still it was a 50 million team there. So,
how do you feel about that, by the way? Because we saw this with Fluminense when they went away to when they played the strongest in La Paz. The fact that from the off, like Palmeiras the first round away to Bolivar, and they sort of, I know that you just said there when you said £50 million team, but they decided to change that team as if almost, okay, we might accept defeat here, and Fluminense put a reserve team out against the strongest. Why do you think that is? Do you think Brazilian teams just know they're going to not throw away, but not going to win here. So they save people from flying, and obviously look, Brazilian schedule is busy anyway, and they know that there's enough games for them to potentially qualify. And Fluminense were in a good position at that time, and Palmeiras obviously went on to win the group. I just thought I'd throw that over to you because it's an interesting approach Brazilian teams seem to be taking.
Yeah, there are two ways to see this. I mean, one of them is they really value their domestic league.
Yeah.
They really gave value. I mean, it's amazing that, and that's something that we should admire. But there is also some small feeling of underestimation there.
Yeah, always. Yeah, I don't think that'll ever go. Whether people look at South American football on the surface who never watch it, or people like yourself and I who live and breathe it, it's always an interesting topic. I just found this year more than most that teams were rotating heavily, where before it's normally just 2 or 3, but this year it just seemed to be conceding from the very beginning. But it's just another interesting point to make.
Yeah, I mean, on the Fluminense one was even worse because it was way too underestimation. They were not in still. They were actually somehow risking it because if they anyway, they made a great game there. I mean, it was really tough. It was really tough game. It was not the best version of the strongest, but it was a good game. They were close, but still not bringing your first squad, your lineup. It's like something. It's way unnecessary, risky, right? So but on the other side, Bolivar Palmeiras, I can understand because from the from after we know or after we knew that what was the group, somehow the teams were mapping it in a way that okay, so it's a matter of beating Palmeiras and see what we can make we can make with Barcelona Cerro Porteño, and Bolivar is easy peasy, right? It was kind of that. I perceived that also interacting with some other users. That was the perception also from the media. I live in Argentina, so I just consume the whole media from Argentinian,
Sure. Yeah.
Big media, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, Bolivar would not make it." And yeah, when we were after the fourth game, it was clearly first place was really shocking for everyone and start to respect. But if you see it from the inside, and I try to put my jersey off and be as much objective as I can.
Of course.
And of course, Bolivar is the only team in Bolivia and one of the few in Latin America with a real project. I mean, I don't know if you heard, we have the Centenario project. It says the centenary. On the 2025, we will be 100 years old, right? It will be our centenary. And we have our chairman, that is Marcelo Claure, that he is actually a businessman that lives in the US. I don't know if you know that. He actually founded the Bright Star, for example. He was part of the board of the Sprint, SoftBank. Now he's part of the board of the Shine, the Chinese clothes brand. So he's a businessman that knows how to make money, knows how to drive projects, and actually he invests in Bolivar. He was elected by the we have a model of tenants here. We have like centenary membership tenants. So it's kind of a membership. It's like a society, but with membership, it's hard to explain. That I will explain it later. Okay. And he invests in Bolivar in 3 pillars: infrastructure, for the future, team for the present, and of course the academies, for the faraway future. So one of the projects is to get, for example, and one thing that, and I will show you here, one thing that one of the projects was about, and I have it here because I also put it on the slide. It was preparing our training campus.
Oh wow,
We
okay.
used to we used to train in to do the training on our old stadium, which was not longer in use. It was a very old stadium and it was not in use for official matches. I mean, it was okay, but it was not the conditions of a first level training campus just like we have,
Yeah.
and it's one of the best in Latin America. It's called Ananta. So what that was one of the key pieces, of course, to see these results. We are training in places that are similar, like, I don't know, Atlético Paranaense, Palmeiras, Barcelona are
That's great.
training. So this is also, given equality on that. And the next project is the stadium. So, and the stadium will be finished on the 2025. This is the place where we used to do the training, and
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
course, it's going to be our new stadium. It's under
Oh wow.
construction now. So this is part of the centenary. So anyone over the world, or also you, can get a centenary membership tenancy. So you just need to go to the bolivar.com.bo, bolivaroficial.com
Sign me
website.
up. Sign me up.
There you go. And you can just go on your credit card. You have three types of membership. You have the light blue, which is $50 a year. The golden, that is $200 a year, and you get a jersey, an official jersey. And the one that is the platinum, that is $1,000 a year, and you have a lot of benefits, and of course a jersey and a lot of benefits.
I
So
should
you
hope
can
so.
just so you just can join from anywhere, you and anybody from anywhere in the world, and of course you will contribute with this growth on Bolivar. And we're finally seeing results. We are 70,000 of Centenario membership tenants, and
Oh
we have
wow.
a goal of 10,000.
That's amazing.
So
That's that stadium, if that's the plan, that looks incredible. So yeah, definitely excited to see all that to come together. And yeah, you'll get a light blue membership. $50 is fine. I'll add to the pot.
nice, nice. So we have, yeah, for the for the people of the marketing, you have a
There's another
tenant.
one. Yeah, you've
There's
drawn me
another
in.
one. There you go. Then we can check that offline, of course. Yeah, this is of course the results are not coming along. This is part of this. We have finally a serious project. Why Bolivar is showing that level of performance in the competition. It's also because we're part of a project now, and it's not for free. Of course, we are investing a lot of money. Not only us, also Marcelo Clara invests a lot of money on that, and these are the results. Of course, we can get out of the competition on this stage, but this is still an achievement, right? Because
Oh,
we made
100%.
it. We made it already. But yeah, I mean, we're still hopeful, and some of them are putting us over Internacional, which is a big team. Many people from outside of Bolivia are setting up as favorite to Bolivar, so, which is really great, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was in International. I think obviously, look, last year they got knocked out to Melgar. I think it was the year before that they lost in Bolivia. I'm not 100% sure who the team was. I don't know if it was Always Ready, but it's an example that they will also struggle with the altitude and not just the altitude. Obviously, Bolivar are a strong team. You can't just get that far, but to get outside the group stage was, as you said, was probably the number one aim. And the teams in that, like Cerro Porteño, were incredibly weak. I don't think people expected them to be as bad as they were. But Barcelona, very strong team, and the fact I honestly thought that it would be Barcelona and Palmeiras to go through in if for my early predictions anyway. So the fact that it was a really challenging group, there wasn't any two teams dead set there. There was an opportunity, but Bolivar, like you said, had to secure a away victory, which are very, very rare, but they did that. And yeah, huge achievement. If they go out now, like I said, as long as in that second leg it's quality and not individual mistakes, which is the reason why you go out. You can hold your heads up proud, really, that you've got this far anyway. But just make sure that if you do bow out, it's down to Inter's quality and not Bolivar's mistakes, because you're so close to the semi-finals now. It's not the time to make those kind of errors in such a key match. Easier said than done. And I'm not here to volunteer to do the team talk. That's not my job. But Bennett, as we've seen, he's on the touchline. I did want to bring up his celebrations and how he goes about it. He's so invested into it. Every goal matters. Every decision he celebrates or shows emotion, which is what you want from your coach. And obviously he's come back and he's doing a great job. And yeah, I'm a big fan of what he's doing, and I love seeing him celebrate on the touchlines. It's shows that it means a lot, and he cares about the project.
Yeah, and actually he's way too questioned by the supporters here. There's a big portion that it's putting under the spot, his performance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that because of domestic, though, rather than obviously Libertadores?
I think it's more like personal, but there's a big group that it's against him. And in fact, Barcelona match, there's a common, a popular shout on the pitches, like it's like fuera. It's like go out. I don't know, go out, Nathan, go out, Sepe, go out, and you can put the name you want. And it was go out, Beñat, fuera Beñat. They were, the crowd was shouting, fuera Beñat, fuera Beñat. Minute 90, 92, and Fernandez scored.
And then everyone changes their mind. Yeah.
and the next day, the memes, the memes were were like they were a kind of a hashtag that said "fuera Beñat," and it was changed like to from "fuera" to "fuerza," like to be strong, Beñat. It's just taking out one letter.
Yeah.
It sounds it sounds funny in Spanish, but yeah, I just wanted to explain the joke.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that's one thing. The one interesting fact of this competition, Beñat is not fully loved by the whole, let's say, supporters in Bolivia. But yeah, I mean, the time is giving him the right. You like it or not, we are in the round of 8, so this is not for free.
Yeah, exactly, and could be in the final 4, and then he's hard to hate at that point. You've got to get on his side, surely.
Yeah, I mean that it's in our minds. If we just pass this stage, would be against Olimpia and Fluminense. Of course, we prefer Olimpia. Why?
Sure.
Because Fluminense already played in altitude. They know how to play already, so they have this advantage. So, and of course, Olimpia, what they show on the from the stands, it's amazing. I mean, it's unique.
Yeah, intimidating. Like the fact that they managed to intimidate one of the biggest teams in Brazil and the champions, and dominated really that whole game and found their weaknesses and exploited them. Especially down that left-hand side, questionable choices in terms of playing David Luiz and Felipe Luiz, aged like 37 and 38 on that left side, and Olympia exploited it. But if they've got an intelligent manager there, and they'll look to exploit whoever they play. And I don't think that Fluminense game is going to be as simple as teams make out. Again, if they've already been to the Maracana, obviously look Flamengo and Fluminense ground share. So they know what it's all about. It's not that they're going to a completely new environment where they're going to be intimidated. They know what to expect. And if they can come away from that with a draw or like a 1-goal loss, there's no reason why they can't replicate what they did against Flamengo. So it's a similar job to Bolivar, really, in that away leg, damage limitation, and at home, use the advantage of the atmosphere and the home crowd to drive them through. So 2 really interesting ties, and until the first leg's done, I don't really want to make too many predictions.
Yeah. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, we're still hopeful on them, and yeah, let's see. Okay, Nathan. So some final questions. Maybe anything you like to know? Anything you like to start doing the closing of this nice session?
Yeah, you can hit me with the questions or the last couple of questions, and we'll take it
I
from
have.
there.
It's quite early in Bolivia, so I have nothing. Oh, I have one here. Okay, yeah. Oh, you already answered that. So what's your favorite team in Latin America? There's one here.
I'm going to say Bolivar.
Oh, very good, very good.
It's the right
Very
answer, isn't
good.
it? I can't say anything else. I can't come on a Bolivian podcast and not. So yeah, Bolivar for sure. Mainly down to Ronnie Fernandez, and I'm a huge fan of Ronnie Fernandez.
Oh yes, I have a question for you then.
Sure.
Um, can you identify some of the players that you like that you will bring to Nottingham Forest? For example, if you were like the manager and you have I don't know, $100 million to bring Bolivian players only, which ones from Bolivar you will, and why Ronnie Fernandez?
One, Ronnie Fernandez, because I'd love to see him in the Premier League, purely because it would be similar to like Diego Costa, the way he's probably getting in an argument or a fight every week with the opposite centre back. So he's got that Diego Costa personality, and that's always great to watch, isn't it? Especially as a neutral or on your side, it's always good to have like a big, aggressive striker who he's really technical and really good with his feet, but also dangerous in the air. So I can't not say Ronnie Fernandez, but I really like. And I'm trying to see if I can get this right, but Gabriel Villamil, he's 22, central midfielder. I do like him. I think he's got a lot of potential, to be honest with you. Um, a lot of what I'm seeing in Bolivar's team is like I said earlier, like it's a nice mix of experience and youth players and younger players, and giving them a chance. And it showed a lot of confidence and scored a couple of goals in the group stage. So really like the look of him. Quite a good box to box player, and I just liked how creative he was and wanting to drive forward, and the confidence on him on in the Libertadores was always quite refreshing to see. So anytime young players are getting minutes, it's always nice to keep tracking them a little bit and seeing what they're doing. But he's definitely one which has stood out to me. There's a couple of others which I've noticed, and Chavez Cruz, who's been getting a bit of game time as well, and Javier Uzeda. Both of them are sort of like been a little bit on my radar. Not sure if they'd be coming over to Nottingham Forest and being my first port of call, but all
Got injured.
exciting. Sorry.
Got injured. Lucas Chavez got injured last
Yes.
week.
Yeah. Yeah. But just an overview of those three players, I do like. I think Villamil is the standout player. But if we're going to go completely away from these players, we've nearly spoke for an hour, and the one person I did want to touch upon and not necessarily bringing him over to Nottingham Forest or another club is Carlos Lampe, the goalkeeper, 36, and his reflexes. I'm so impressed with him. For his age, I think he's got a lot of experience as well, but he's diving around sometimes as if he's 20 years of age. So I've been really impressed with him. Like we've pointed out Ronnie Fernandez and like Villamil players who are adding to the goals. But defensively, I've been really impressed with him. And like I said, for his age, he's brought a lot to the team and definitely deserves a lot of credit, which is probably not coming his way because Ronnie Fernandez is probably getting most of that, and deservedly so. But you have to look at the other end of the pitch. And yeah, for 36 years of age, fair play to him. I've been really impressed with him in goal.
Great, great. Yeah, Lamp is another one that is, not really loved by all the supporters sometimes. But yeah,
I'm
easy.
just falling out with people then, aren't I? If I'm saying I like the manager and I like that goalkeeper, it's a good job I'm in the UK, I guess.
If we keep doing like that, I'm sure it will end up like that. But yeah, anyway. Okay, Nathan, I think we're almost over time. I promise you that it's going to be 1 hour. So we're 1 hour o'clock, just like in the
Timed it
UK,
perfectly.
you're very obsessed with the time. This is in the UK, right? So yeah. Nathan, really a big pleasure to meet you. I hope we can do this more often. I hope we can have a follow-up session maybe in the future. I don't know, maybe after the round of eight. And also, we both have one small project that we will let the people know as soon as we we can we have
Yes.
the green light for that. So let's see if that's going to happen. It's a surprise, so we will say it when it's ready. And yeah, we have a new Centenario tenant here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, look, thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure. It's been insightful for me and hopefully to your audience as well. And yeah, I'm keeping a lot to myself, secrets with the Copper Club, but we're adding another layer to that secret with yourself. So I'm having to bite my tongue. There's an awful lot to keep. As secrets at the moment, it's quite hard, but there's a lot of exciting things coming. So hopefully we get to share that with everybody very soon. But yeah, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks to you, and really, two things: follow Nathan Joyce in Twitter, um, listen to the Copa Club podcast, which is great podcast, and third, buy those posters from Copa Club. You have Ronnie Fernandez one. You can order from anywhere in the world. So, just how much is it? £6?
£6.99 A4, £9.99, and then plus postage for A3. But yeah, all podcasts are free. Website content is free as well. And then yeah, my Twitter is at Nathan Joyes, JOYES1. So yeah, do give me a follow. And any products we put out, all the magazines. The magazines are always digital as well, so people can buy them for half the price. So you don't have to worry about a lot of postage, which that can be the problem. So yeah, I try not to limit my audience too much. So yeah, everything's digital as well. So hopefully that appeals to at least a couple of people who's listening.
Yeah, of course, and yeah, let's support this initiative from Nathan and Copa Club. And well, Nathan, again, thank you so much, and talk to you soon, I hope.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.